All right, so perennial issue is the State Oversight and Act 47. That was implemented about 8 years ago now. Pittsburgh was designated by the state as a financially distressed municipality. That placed it under fiscal oversight. The oversight includes spending restrictions, such as wage limitations for union workers, including police, fire, and EMS. Police, fire, and EMS. All right, one of the linchpins of the legislation. So last year, a number of elected and union officials and business leaders called for the city to be released from Act 47 oversight. Do you believe that should happen? And if it does, what will your administration do to make sure that the city's budget remains strong enough to prevent the state from stepping in again? So we'll just start with Mike again. I forget who's in order here.
So obviously we've been under this oversight and we've needed it. We've needed it for a long time. The fact of the matter is that every day in this city we're missing opportunities to save money, to improve services. And the Oversight Board and the Act 47 team have been helpful in directing us in certain directions. It wasn't elected officials and labor leaders who suggested that we get out of Act 47. It was actually the Act 47 coordinator. And what they said was that over the last few years, a couple of things have happened. One is the city got a new financial management system. Another is that we have worked more diligently with our surrounding communities to help save money. Another is that we saved the pension from a costly state takeover. All of these things are things that were met with reluctance, if not the outright opposition of the current administration. These are things that I pursued, and so when it came time to talk about whether we should get out, given the fact that it was the coordinators themselves saying to get out, it didn't really make a lot of sense to say, well, let's keep paying you anyway, even though you're not going to do much for us anymore. We still have the ICA and the Oversight Board, and the ICA has basically been really the one that has really been able to hold the purse strings, because of their ability to withhold gaming money. They've been able to entice this administration to do the right things even when they didn't want to. And that's why they've been able to put more money into the pension fund and do the things that we've really asked them to do. So right now, even if we are get out of Act 47, which we are not out yet, if we are, we would still have the Oversight Board. The fact of the matter is, what really matters is we got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to ensure that we continue on a decent path of financial stability in this city. And we're not moving in the right direction right now. And we are on a course right now that we will have a deficit in the coming years. Not just a deficit financially, but a deficit of our infrastructure as well. And we've got to find ways to deal with those financial issues.
We'll come back for another 30 seconds. Let's stick for a minute.
So the bad news is we're not ready to get out of Act 47. The good news is there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Again, I know you folks, you know my record. I was the person who proposed Act 47, and I couldn't even get a second on council to have the discussion, but I knew it was what was necessary in order to get this city's finances straight. The mayor and I disagreed. He voted against it. I voted for it, and in the 5 years that happened in that first plan, we went from a $90 million deficit, structural, every year, to a $50 million surplus. The next 5-year plan, I was the chair of finance to make sure it happened. The things that Michael talked about, the management system, the debt policy, were issues that I was proud to be the sponsor of, and to make sure that this city had fiscal discipline. Why not get out now? Because we're not ready. Because only 20% of the recommendations have actually less than 20% have been implemented. Because we've done things like not fully hiring enough police officers in order to have a surplus, in order to go, hey state, look, we have a surplus, let us get out. And who gets hurt when you don't fund the budgets the way they should? The people in the communities. So let's give it the time that is necessary to get the full implementation done, and that light at the end of the tunnel is in 2018, when our debt under our new debt management policy comes down and we have a cushion of financial backing in order to have a sustainable future.
Well, I do support the removal of the Act 47 coordinators, and I think Controller Lamb made a very valid point. It wasn't labor that called for the removal. It wasn't the corporate community. It wasn't a special interest. It was the folks that we hired that came in and said our job was to put ourselves out of work and we believe that we achieved that, and it's time for us to go away. And I think that's a testament to everybody. That's a testament to the sacrifices that the workers have made in this city, it's a sacrifice that many of you in this room and throughout the city have made in terms of doing more with less. When you don't issue debt for 5 years, that's a difficult thing for us to maintain. We did that. As a result of doing that, we've retired over $250 million of debt over the past 5 years. We meet the criteria to be removed from Act 47, and I fully support it. The question that I think is important and was kind of hinted at from Chris is, how will you ensure, beyond the removal of Act 47, that your administration will remain fiscally responsible? One more recent thing, and I know I'm out of time, is the negotiations with the EMS Bureau, which, by the way, happened entirely independently of the Act 47 team. We negotiated a good deal, a strong deal, a fair deal. We haven't backed down. We didn't back down. Our plan, in fact, was voted down 100 and some odd votes to 7. So our administration is not going to cave under pressure from unions or anybody else. We're going to negotiate fair deals, and we're going to do so when we think it's fair to labor and fair to the taxpayers. And so we're committed to that, and that's just the most recent example of how we're going to do without the Act 47 coordinators, assuming they're no longer going to be here.
Yeah, well, let's keep talking about the contracts with police, fire, and EMS. We'll get back to Michael here.
Well, obviously the contracts are coming up again in 2014 for police and fire, and there will be an opportunity to do some things there. But what we really need to focus on in the long-term benefit of this city is, what are we going to do about this enormous unfunded pension liability? Because that's the hurdle that's hanging out there that could really hurt us and really put us on the wrong course. And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot that needs to be done. And there's a lot that these unions already agree to. You know, police and fire agree that 50 is not a realistic retirement age. You know, police and fire agree that they need to contribute more. If we're going to have a defined benefit pension plan, they need to contribute more, as well as the municipal employees and fire as well. There are those kind of pension reforms that this administration has all too often just said, oh, well, that's a Harrisburg problem, we can't do anything about it. We should expect more than that. We should expect more leadership in this way, because there are things we can do here. We can do things with respect to contributions. We can negotiate on retirement age. You know, we can eliminate spiking that firefighters get. We can do that through contract negotiation, and we just haven't done it. We haven't pursued it with them, and we need to. It's the biggest financial issue we have out there. And it matters. It doesn't matter because of the pension itself. It matters because it goes to the heart of the financial situation of the city and our ability to do other things across neighborhoods in this city.
So with police, again, with the residency requirement, we're losing our officers. We're losing our good young officers. They're going up to the North Hills where they're getting a better salary, and they're sending their kids to suburban schools. You know, 100% of that police force now has master degrees, their entire police force. So we can say, well, no, police have to live in the city, but we're just going to lose them in 5 years, 10 years. We'll become the training for the rest of the suburbs. Putting that on the table allows us to get other things that we can afford. Putting the flex time on the table allows us that as well. I believe the fire contract's up in 2014, which means if we get out of Act 47 this year, the fire contract will be negotiated without the financial condition of the city as a condition. Under a 5-year Act 47 plan, it has to be done in a box. They can negotiate, but they have a certain amount of money to be able to negotiate. If we get out this year, the firefighters will be able to negotiate whatever. We can raise taxes to pay it. And the third part with that is also just in having Act 47 gives us a window, a 5-year vision. Having ICA, they can put conditions on the city that we have to do, and then they would take revenue away. What I'm worried about, each one of those people are political appointees. What if that conditions privatizing our parking meters? What if that conditions privatizing PWSA? And if we don't do it, because there's some people in this town that can make a lot of money from it, then we lose revenue. Having Act 47 safeguards us against that type of bad decision.
Real quickly, I want to counter something Bill said, who was I think a little bit earlier, pretty aggressive in terms of his interest in diversifying the police force and very critical of us. I didn't hear any solutions, but I can tell you that one thing that's not going to help diversifying the police force is letting the cops move out of the city. You think it's hard to attract minority candidates now? It'll be that much harder if residency is removed. As far as the Act 47 plan, Bill's wrong. We actually already approved our 5-year plan. And so that 5-year plan is already improved. The ICA, if they remain in the city of Pittsburgh, which we expect that they will still have the ability to oversee our negotiations with police and fire in 2014, and will make us adhere to that. And I can tell you that even if they're not there, my commitment today is that 5-year plan that we approved this year, with or without Act 47, with or without the ICA, we plan to meet it. So in no way does the removal of oversight give us a green light to say, oh, now we can go spend and get back into the same problems that we were in. I walked into council my first session and it was packed with firefighters, police officers, Little League coaches, recreation center leaders, and that was the Act 47 day. Nobody wants to go back to that. And if we're not responsible, we will. And that's a commitment that I've made, and we've continued to be financially responsible, so we don't go back there.
Great, thanks very much for exploring that.